Hi, I'm Fabrice Harari. Welcome to my WebDev and JavaScript course. In this course, we're going to have a look at how you can use JavaScript to extend WebDev functionalities when you need to do that, and why you want to do that, and step by step exactly how to do it. So be ready for some gritty details. Let's start by a simple explanation. What is JavaScript? Maybe some of you don't know that. JavaScript is a development language. You can code directly in JavaScript if you want to. And this is completely independent of WebDev or anything else. It is the development language that is used by browser. This means something very important. It is not on the server side. The JavaScript code is going to be and to run on the side of the end user of your website, inside the browser itself. It is a standard. Yeah, right. Each browser implements a different source. The standard is completely optional, obviously. Nobody follows it completely. And I mean really nobody. It's a mess. It's even worse than each browser. Each version of each browser is a little different in how it interprets JavaScript, which explains the different behavior that we can see for the same page in different browsers. This is mostly because of the way JavaScript is interpreted, is executed, is run, and how they decided they're going to do things when they decide not to follow what is the official standard. Why should you care about JavaScript? Well, the first thing that you have to realize is that even the WebDev code on the browser side, the W language code that you are typing, is translated in JavaScript. Worse than that, it's not only the code that you are typing, it's the way all the controls behave on the browser side that are in fact coded in JavaScript, which is why each page comes with JavaScript libraries. When you look at the distribution of your website on a server, you will see that there is a whole series of JavaScript files which are in fact containing the behavior, the code for each of your control. So your table, your sliders, your edit fields, all of that works because there is this JavaScript code. So not only the standard thing, but also your code, your W language, your beautiful language is automatically translated in JavaScript because this is the only thing that can be run inside a browser. So of course, when you're creating a page, you are also always calculating the weight of your page in order to be fast and all that. I'm sure that you're always optimizing everything, but the problem is that also each time you add a new type of control, you may add a new library that is managing this type of control and you don't even know about it. So the weight of a page is something that is also changing because of JavaScript inside WebDev. Now, because of that, if JavaScript is not enabled in the browser, your site won't work. It will have a very strange behavior. Things will not react normally. You will click on a button and nothing will happen, and so on and so forth. So if that happens, have a look at your customer browser. It may be that JavaScript has been disabled. It is a possibility in nearly every browser to disable it in order to increase security. Because clearly, if the only code that can run on a browser is JavaScript, it means that all the malicious code that is out there is also in JavaScript, which means that it's the best and the worst at the same time, and that's why some people are just disabling JavaScript in their browser. Now, WebDev lets you do two different things. It lets you call JavaScript function directly via a W language function. It also lets you write functions directly in JavaScript code. So how do you do that? Well, clearly, because it's only on the browser side, you have to be in a procedure, in a part of code that is browser side. That's the first thing. At that point, if you go into your code, you will see that there is on the header of your code there is a little sign saying WL for W language. If you click on that, it will automatically switch to JS for JavaScript. At that point, you have and need to type JavaScript code inside your browser with the JavaScript syntax, with the JavaScript rules, with everything JavaScript. And you need to know JavaScript to do that, of course. Now, the reason why you may want to use JavaScript is because anything extra you want to use inside a WebDev page will connect via JavaScript. Anything, it doesn't matter in which language it was developed, it was in .NET, it was in whatever, as long as it's running inside your browser, the connection point is going to be JavaScript. Even if it's a Java applet, an ActiveX, whatever, inside it is doing whatever it is doing and it's not your problem, but the link between that tool, whatever it is, and your own page is going to be JavaScript, because that's the only thing that the browser knows natively. So it is, of course, extremely important if at some point you need to add something extra inside your application. In a little more detail, you're going to use JavaScript when you want to do something that WebDev doesn't do natively. When you want to get information, by example, that WebDev doesn't give you. By example, and I'm not sure if now there's not a function to do that, because it's of course changes all the time, but I use JavaScript to get the width of the window in which the browser is, to test the presence of toolbars. Anything that is browser related is available via JavaScript. So if you don't have the function in WebDev, you can do it that way. Now, of course, if you want to include an external tool or a function, and by example, if you want to replace the standard HTML edit field, which is limited, by something that's much more powerful like CKEditor or something like that, you're going to need to do some JavaScript. If you want to include a video player and not limit yourself to the small video field that is available, you're going to need to use JavaScript. If you want to use some external tool, by example a fingerprint render, and you want to integrate that into your WebDev application, you're going to need some JavaScript. So all that, same thing if you're working with libraries of functions, like a photo gallery, external cart, external payment system, all that, if you want to integrate something that is coming from the outside, it is going to be JavaScript that you're going to be able to master. So it doesn't matter what system the tool uses, it's always going to be for you JavaScript, because that's the link that you have inside the browser. It's the only browser code. Now, where it becomes extremely interesting is that because of all that, you can correct WebDev. Remember that all the browser-side functions are in JavaScript. They are in libraries in little .js file. And if you have an urgent problem, you can correct and modify them. They are, in fact, in plain source. You can directly edit them with Notepad and modify the JavaScript code that is going to be used by your browser side. Now, of course, it is extremely dangerous. You can break everything very easily. if you do that, then you have to just have to copy again the original JavaScript files and you're good to go, but it's still dangerous. Also, it won't last. At the next update of WebDev, you will get a new set of JavaScript libraries, and of course your correction will be overwritten. So if you have that kind of problem, you have to let PCSoft know. You have to first ask them for a correction. But if it's an emergency and you don't get an answer fast enough for you, and it is coming from the browser side, be careful, you cannot correct anything that is on the server side. But on the browser side, you can go into the JavaScript code and correct something. I did that a few times when I had an emergency at a customer, or when it was just something that was not that important, but that was really painful visually. By example, a message that was not translated in English, and that was on the browser side. It was in the JavaScript library. I just went in, replaced it by the English message, and that was that. So this is a real possibility, and it helps from time to time. Also, it allows you from time to time to understand why something is happening, and to be able to modify your way of doing things in order to avoid a problem. So it is possible. It is quite advanced, but it is possible. So this is something that you should do only if you cannot wait, only if everything is going to crash on you if you don't do something immediately. But it is a real possibility. So for the geek inside you, a quick look at what it looks like. This is, as you may see here, this is a resource subdirectory of one of my websites. In this, you will see there is quite a few JS files, JavaScript files, and you will see that they have French name. They didn't bother to translate that because it is behind the scenes stuff that you are not supposed to touch. So the name are French, the commands in the files are in French too, and the name of the variable in them are in French too. So basically it's not going to be easy for you to do anything, but it is there and it is possible. Now a few things to see. First, you can see that here this is my global browser procedure. My global browser procedure that I wrote in W language is translated in this JavaScript file. After that, you have all the libraries themselves, like jQuery, like menu contextuel, which is local menus, and standard actions, Ajax, and you can see that the size varies greatly. Here it's only 1 kilobyte, but as soon as you put Ajax in it, it's going to be much bigger. Okay, and you have a lot of them. Now if you take any of them, and let's take a big one so that you have a good kick out of it, and we do an edit. So we'll just open it with Notepad, and then we see how beautiful that code is. So if you want to modify it, you can. I personally prefer to avoid it if I really don't have to do it. So as you can see, it is readable. Action, propriété, URL, function, NTIR. So the thing is, this looks like this because they are trying to have that file as small as possible. So there's no space, there's no carriage return, there's nothing. There's really nothing to work with. You really don't want to go there. So it's if you have to, it's there. Otherwise, it may be a problem. What are the problems when you want to use JavaScript inside your web dev site? Well, the first main problem is that the JavaScript code is really different from one browser to the next, and that is mostly because the architecture of the page and of the objects of the page is completely different from one to the next. They implemented their stuff in very, very different ways. The name of the object and property are different too. So it is really a mess to be able to code for browser and JavaScript. You may need several codes and tests. In fact, you will need several codes and tests if you want to support multiple browsers. So how many browsers do you support? On how many browsers do you test? On how many versions of browser do you test? Is your code going to work in IE, in Firefox, in JavaScript, in Opera? In which version? It's going to be a full and complete mess. So it's going to be very complex, which means that it's going to be very costly to develop this kind of thing, and that it will never be complete. It will be a never-ending problem, because suddenly you will have a customer telling you, but I want to use this type of browser. What browser? I never heard of that thing. And there are lots of them out there that you probably have never heard of. So this is really a never-ending story, and it is not a web dev problem. It's not because you're using WebDev that you're going to be in trouble because of all these different browsers. It is because JavaScript is absolutely not standardized between browsers. So everybody who's coding for the web has this particular problem. In fact, when you do research on the subject and you're trying to find a solution to a specific problem, you will see everybody else having the exact same problem, looking for the same solution for the same problem, and saying, okay, my code is working in IE6, but it's not working in IE7, it's not working in Firefox, so it's not working in this, it's not working in that. How do I change my code so that it worked there, and now I'm changing it, but it's not working in IE6 anymore? It is a complete and total mess, and it is something that I try to avoid as much as possible. This is really, really, really the stuff of nightmares. Is it worth it? The short answer is no. Now, longest answer. In WebDev you have lots and lots of tools. You came to these tools for several different reasons, I'm sure. But one of the things that is extremely appealing about the PCSoft tools is that they are extremely complete. They have lots and lots and lots and lots of options. Because of that, most of the time you can do stuff directly with WebDev. So I've seen very often people saying, oh, I want to do an animation, I want to do this fancy stuff. Well, you can do it directly in W language. In browser code in W language, you can animate things, make them move around with a timer, and so on and so forth. Everything that you're going to do anyway is going to be translated automatically for you in JavaScript code. And the guys at PCSoft did the work of being able to translate the W language in a code that is working in all the browsers. So why would you want to code directly in JavaScript when you can code in W language and just forget about it? So really, most of the time, believe me, when you see the request of on the forums, most of the time everything that you ask is doable in WebDev. When it's not doable in WebDev, my advice is avoid it. As much as you can, avoid it. If you have some strange requests from your own customers, tell them that it's okay, no, it's doable, no problem. Just give them a number, a big one, because this is going to take you a lot of time and to cost you a lot of money, so they have to pay for it. Generally, that is enough for them to stop asking about that particular stuff. it is going to cost you a lot. This is really the stuff, the kind of stuff that you really don't want to do. Imagine you want to integrate some extra stuff. So you want to integrate this cart that is made by this company because that's the standard. You were told by the customer, or by the customer brother-in-law, or by, yeah, you know how it goes. You have to buy a license for that thing, and you will have to pay for that license again and again and again every year, perhaps. Or it's going to evolve, which means that as soon as something changes, you have to pay again and to reintegrate. And your customer knows the price of the license of the thing because it's a public information. So you will have to bill him for the license, but also for your time extra. And he won't understand why integrating a thing that is already done from A to Z is going to cost 5 times the cost of the thing that he's buying. So it is really not a good idea. With the extra licenses come the extra problems. You will have the update of your website that suddenly is not working with the external cart. You will have the update of the external cart that suddenly is not working with your website, and so on and so forth. I'm pretty sure that you've all seen that before, especially if you're coming from the client world. Well, you have all these extra tools, templates, or however you call them. I'm pretty sure you had some compatibility problem at some point or another, and that you spend loads and loads of money on these things. And of course you will have huge maintenance problem. It is going to be really a nightmare with all the different implementation of JavaScript. And don't forget all the time that you will have to spend learning JavaScript or part of it, or finding information. It is going to be a lot of time. So is it worth it? My answer is definitely no. Does that mean that you will never have to do it? Unfortunately, my answer is also no. Does that mean that I was able to always avoid doing it? Once again, no. So I have done it, and I really, because I have the experience, advise against it. In any case where you can avoid it, avoid it. There are some developer tools that you can use to help you with JavaScript code. But because JavaScript is a language that runs inside the browser, it means that all the tools that you're going to use are also inside the browser. This also means that these tools are different per browser. Each browser has a different set of tools. So what do we have? In Firefox, at one point Firefox was the tool that had the most advanced system for developer. Currently it looks like they are the last one. They are basically only an error console, which still usable, but what you have inside the tools is this error console, and this error console will display something if there was an error in the JavaScript. This will allow you to know on which line of which file or which page there is an error and which error it is, which is already invaluable because it allows you to have a better idea of where to look for a solution. Now that's about it. After that we have to look at the other ones. So in Chrome and Internet Explorer there is currently something that looks much more advanced that you can reach via this menu and tools, developer tools. You have also a JavaScript console, but if you look at the developer tools, this is what you get. And as you can see, there's already the source display, resource, network, source, timeline, profile, audit, console. So there is quite a few things, this being as far as I know, the equivalent of the error console. And now if you go in Internet Explorer, you get something that looks nearly like a debugger. And here we are. I'm going to open that. Let's see. And here also via the menu and the F12 keyword, you have this where you can in fact run the script of the page and put breakpoint, stop things. It's the profiler is in fact what we would call a debugger normally, and you can use that to put a breakpoint or see where the error is directly in the code and so on. So it is quite valuable, and you have a lot of different tools at different level. There's even a way to send a different identification and make the server think that you're Firefox or Chrome or another version of IE to see if you're going to get a different code, which is absolutely possible. Some websites are sending different pages depending of the browser that is on the other side. So this way you can debug the code in there too. Now I'm not going to teach you how to use this tool. I barely know how to use them, and really I just scratch the surface. The reason why I'm showing you that is that these tools are going to be the only way for you to debug your code and to have an idea of what's going on when your JavaScript code is not working. So you need to know that they exist, and if you're in trouble, you are going to have to read the help on that and learn how to use these tools that are completely different for each browser. Now there are also third-party tools. By example, in Firefox there is an add-on called Web Developer that add menu lines in the tools menu, and where you have all this wonderful thing, the error console, source, developer toolbar, this, that, the profiler, and so on and so forth, and where you can do lots of things on everything to test. So as you can see, there are quite a few tools. The problem is they are not your tools, they are the browser tool. So should you really invest that much time in adding functionality to your website? Is it worth it? And at that point you really have to think, because I showed you that is the only thing that you will have to debug and to know that there is a problem somewhere. So is it really worth it?